This chart reading is for Friday, August 21st, 1981 at 7:44 a.m. in Beaumont, Texas. And you have Sun in Leo, Moon in Taurus, Virgo rising. And it's just kind of funny because the last chart reading I read had Sun exalted in Aries, Moon in domicile in Cancer. You have Sun in domicile in Leo and Moon exalted in Taurus. So just like the last reading I did, both the luminaries are very strong. The Sun and the Moon are very strong in these placements, and they're also both squaring one another. Not, it's not exact to the degree, but it is. They are squaring by sign. So what this means is this is a really nice balance. Sun in Leo is almost maybe kind of the most natural sign for the Sun to be in. The Sun rules the ego and how we express ourselves, and Leo is such a warm, expressive sign. It's such a fun and playful sign, and it sort of has that strong, consistent fire about it, that strong warmth and that strong, vibrant energy that they project into the world. And so this is a very almost like a privileged sun sign to have. But not only that, you have Moon in Taurus, which is very nice as well because Moon rules, our emotional core and sort of the more private part of our personality, and our deep emotions. And Moon is very grounded in Taurus. Taurus is very consistent and pragmatic. It doesn't get, carried away with any drama or anything like that. It's very sort of conservative and practical. And so you have this really nice mix there. Sun and Leo can at times be overly confident or be maybe a little bit full of itself at times, but you would be sort of protected from this because the Moon in Taurus would be very grounded. So these placements together really gives you a great chance of having some great self-esteem and a great friendly personality that's easy to understand for people. The Sun in Leo is very confident, but the Moon in Taurus is very humble, and so you have that nice kind of middle ground, that happy medium there. Also, Leo and Taurus, they're both fixed signs. They're both very easy to understand. They're very straightforward. So it's easy for people to like you, to understand you. You work well with others. And then these are two fixed signs, so normally this would make you stubborn. So you're definitely probably someone who prefers consistency, especially with that Virgo rising as well. You would like things to be stable and consistent. So change would be hard for you. You don't mind some predictability in your life. But that makes you very easy to understand as well because with you, what you see is what you get. People don't have a hard time understanding you. You're very straightforward. Okay, what else? What else? You have a lot going on in your chart. So Mercury, being a Virgo rising person, you have Mercury as your chart ruler, and Mercury is exalted in Virgo, and it's actually conjunct the rising with an orb of 3 degrees. So this would make you, very intelligent, very analytical. You may enjoy writing or have skill with reading, writing. You may enjoy reading. You may enjoy collecting a lot of information and factoids. Um, let's see here. It can also make you kind of slender or dark complected. Mercury, being conjoined with the ascendant. Mercury dominant chart people usually have sort of dark complexion, especially dark hair and dark eyes. And then you have a lot of planets dominant in your chart really. So you also have Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter in the first house. So Mercury would be very much infused into your personality. So again, that's that sort of analytical and that rational energy. But you also have Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter sort of infused into your personality, being in the first house, which rules our identity. So Venus in Libra is also in domicile. You have a lot of planets in domicile or exalted or you do have Mars in fall. But so these are kind of special placements where the planets are especially strong or especially challenged, I guess you could say. But you do have Venus in domicile in Libra, so it's a very strong placement. Again, it's something that's easy for others to understand. And it would mean that you would have an attractive personality, so it may make you physically attractive, but also your personality would be, you know, very nicely received by others. It would make you sort of easygoing and gracious and polite, especially with your Virgo rising. I would see you as being a very polite person, so it would just make you very well received by others, I guess. Um, Before I get too much into detail here, I did want to mention that you have your sun in the 12th house. So even though this is a little bit contradictory now, because even though you do have that side of you that is well received by others and it's easily understood, sun in the 12th house placements are sort of obscured. And your sun and your Mercury are in the 12th house. So you may have that bright, warm energy about you with your having your sun in Leo, but something about it is sort of obscured or it's not obvious. It's like, especially at a young age, it may have not really been there. You may have not really had those classic Leo traits about you, especially in the first like 20 to 30 years of life. You wouldn't really be super warm and outgoing. You would be maybe a little bit withdrawn or just not really relate to that side of your personality. And this is usually because um, this part of your personality was you felt like it was suppressed, I guess. So maybe it just wasn't accepted. Like you almost felt like you weren't really allowed to be a person as a child. Like you weren't allowed to have your own thoughts or feelings, or you weren't allowed to express yourself. So something about your upbringing just felt suppressed. And as a result, it takes you a long time to develop this sort of warm and outgoing, Leo type of Leo part of your personality. Um, but it is something that usually develops later in life. You do have your North Node in Leo as well. So I'm not sure exactly how far you've kind of matured in this area, but um, a lot of times once a person gets to their Saturn returns, that'd be late 20s, they make a lot of progress in that area and really start to develop those 12th house placements. So especially going into your 30s, you should develop more of like a warm, outgoing side of your personality, and you may have been kind of shy or misunderstood at a young age, but this would it just takes time to develop this more confident side of your personality. So hopefully that's not too contradictory. I know I said that you'd be very accepted, but at the same time, I think maybe this just takes time, really. I mean, you do have your moon in Taurus in the ninth house, so that part is very visible and easily understood by people for sure. So I think, especially early in life, you may almost relate to Taurus more than Leo. So you may be more steady and earthy, pragmatic, um, maybe even a little bit like cynical or withdrawn. It wouldn't be till a little bit later in life that you'd be more warm and friendly and outgoing, charismatic. Those classic Leo archetype or Leo traits. And this also applies to this analytical side of your personality as well, with Mercury in 12th house Virgo. So yeah, I mean, I think part of me wants to say that this side of your personality was always there, but again, it was just obscured. So you've always been kind of intelligent and curious and skeptical as well. Maybe you've been into reading or writing, but again, something about it was delayed or obscured or hidden from view, maybe even hidden from yourself, and it develops later in life. You have Mars in Cancer up here in the 11th house. Mars is in fall in Cancer, meaning that this is a very challenging placement to have. And something I've noticed is, so Mars rules what we fight for and how we fight, and it also has to do with sometimes what we fight with. Um, and Cancer ruling family and the home, it would indicate that you fight for your family, so you're very like loyal and passionate. You'll defend your family, but at the same time, it would also indicate potential for fighting with your family. So you would have a lot of fights with your family, but also you'd fight for them as well. There'd just be a lot of like conflict surrounding the family and the home. And this too, just like I guess everything, it can take time to develop. Placements that are in detriment or fall like this, I don't think are necessarily cursed. It just takes time to really develop those strengths there. It's something that's initially very challenging. So you can, maximize that strength that you feel from that loyalty with your, the family or people that are close to you. This can be, a really good placement um, for that defense and that loyalty. Um, it's just more challenging with, I don't know, having tempers fly or flare up and having those conflicts with family. That's definitely a theme there. Okay, so with Midheaven and Gemini, I'm kind of bouncing around here, but with Midheaven and Gemini, that really indicates to me someone who is speaking or writing for their career. So doing something analytical, something with your mind, something with teaching or speaking or writing, something that can utilize your analytical ability and your skill with reading or writing. And I think being a Virgo rising with Mercury conjunct the ascendant, you clearly have some skill in these areas in this more logical, rational, analytical arena, if you will. So yeah, I do think you'd have some kind of career with that. Maybe, and it may also have to do with like meeting many different people, almost like a journalist or something. Having short but information dense conversations with many people. So like teaching, writing, uh, journalism. I'm not sure what else. Maybe being like a trainer too, something where you're speaking, talking, writing, um, something of that nature. I think yeah, I'm kind of noticing a almost like a schism here because like part of you is like very straightforward and easy for people to understand and well received. But I think you have also this whole other side of your personality that's very subconscious and um, very complicated and very hidden away. And it's very analytical. You have this like very analytical side that's kind of hidden away. It's not clear with people. I don't think that people see that side of you right away. So maybe you seem very straightforward at first when really there's a lot of actual complexity there. Um, Hopefully that makes sense. It's not too vague here. Let's see. Let's talk about your relationships. So this kind of goes in a whole different direction in a way. For relationships, I mostly look at Venus, Mars, and the descendant. You have Venus in Libra, Mars in Cancer, and descendant in Pisces. And these signs to me are all kind of codependent, which is interesting because you, with your Sun in Leo, Moon in Taurus, and Virgo rising, to me, you seem like a very self-sufficient person, especially with Sun in the 12th house. You can be very private, and you can kind of get lost in your own world a lot of the time. And I think you're just naturally kind of self-sufficient. But you would attract a partner who's much more codependent, and you actually might be more codependent in relationships. So like when you do have a strong connection with someone romantically, it may actually open up this sort of codependent side of your personality that's not usually there in other aspects of your life, if that makes sense. So in other words, you're typically a very self-sufficient person, but in relationships, you might actually be a bit codependent, and you would also attract partners who are codependent. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It has good and bad aspects, just like anything, I suppose, or strong or challenging aspects. It can be good to have that closeness with someone and to be so empathetic with them and especially if that's returned back to you as well, and to have that really close emotional bond, that can be really rewarding. But it can also be, of course, difficult or detrimental if the connection becomes I think it could result in you being taken advantage of, or maybe even you unwittingly taking advantage of other people, even if that's not your intention. It just kind of blurs the boundaries, I think, with relationships. So that's definitely something to look out for. with your descendant in Pisces, Pisces really doesn't have any boundaries at all, so that can be challenging at times. Um, yeah, and so really you would attract someone who probably has water in their chart, so that would be Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces. Um, and it would be a little bit difficult for you to find someone who is really, really compatible with you. It would be kind of rare for you just because you have so much going on in your chart. You have, you're very well rounded in a way, sort of, because you do have a pretty decent mix of the elements. But at the same time, this would mean that the type of person you would need for long term compatibility would be like you have very specific needs. Um, you need someone with water in their chart, someone emotional, sensitive, very empathetic, and very soft and nurturing. That's the type of person you would want. But this kind of clashes with your Leo Sun and your Taurus Moon. Um, I think water would work well with your Taurus Moon, actually. To some extent, it would be sort of like a yin and yang, opposites attract type of thing. You are very earthy and grounded, and so someone else who's very emotional and sensitive would benefit from your groundedness, and you would benefit from their nurturing attitude or their kind of more emotional vibe. I want to just rephrase that one more time. So you would be the more grounded, practical, common sense, intelligent person in a relationship, and you would attract someone more soft, nurturing, emotional, maybe more creative, things of that nature. But at the same time, I think that would open up, even though you are the more grounded person in a relationship, it would also open up maybe a little bit more of a sensitive side to you that's not usually there, that would kind of emerge in romantic relationships or really close partnerships of any sort, really. You have South Node in Aquarius at 1 degree Aquarius. And then IC is Sagittarius. So you may have been a very rebellious child, maybe a very philosophical child, a very intelligent child, someone who grew up very quickly, someone very precocious. You may have associated with like adults as a child or related more to adults than your peers in a way, um, which is sort of funny because going back to the sun in the 12th house, a lot of your ego wasn't developed yet. You may have been very shy and withdrawn, but at the same time, it's sort of confusing. It's like, on the one hand, you took very long to develop, but on the other hand, you grew up very quickly. I think you were a very intelligent child, so that part was like fully developed very early, or maybe not fully developed necessarily because you would continue growing, of course, but you thought and acted more like an adult in some ways than a normal child. So like I always say South Node in Aquarius is like for like prodigies or children who are very responsible and rational and in a way don't even really act like children because of those traits. And then with your IC in Sagittarius, you may have been um, that's also like an intelligent kind of analytical, rational placement, but it's also very emotional and fiery as well. Sagittarius is kind of a combination of all those, and with your IC there, that rolls a lot of your childhood. So you may have been very open to the world, very like your parents may have moved a lot, or you may have traveled a lot, or just been around different people from different backgrounds, like socioeconomic backgrounds or different cultures. Um, you may have been exposed to a lot of these like different energies and different people and attitudes and ideas, even as a young child. So that's very interesting. And there's a direct connection between that upbringing and your career as I want to say a journalist, maybe not literally a journalist, but like figuratively, going back to that career based in like reading or writing or teaching, speaking. There's some kind of connection with that career. It develops from that upbringing that you had, being exposed to all those ideas and cultures and energies. Hopefully that makes sense. Let me know what fits and what doesn't, of course, because it's hard for me to tell sometimes. Okay, you'll have your Lilith. I don't always talk about Lilith, but sometimes I do. You have your Lilith in Scorpio, so Lilith is kind of like this feminine, rebellious side to our nature that's very self-sufficient, and it's kind of dark though in a way, even though it is uplifting and empowering. It's kind of like a dark energy, and it can be very sexual. And for you having that in Scorpio, I think you have this like very private part of your personality that's very strong and sexual, and this would especially come out in moments of like crisis. You'd be almost kind of wild and very strong and even almost fiery in a way, which I know is kind of weird to say, but Scorpio, even though it's a water sign, it's ruled by Mars, which is sort of a fiery energy. Scorpios can be very emotional and have those water traits of being emotional and very emotionally deep and spiritual, intuitive, but they're also kind of fiery in a way as well. So you would have that really like bold, instinctive nature about you. And talking more about experiencing like crisis, it would also bring out your Mars as well. And this is almost kind of backwards. Again, Mars is in detriment, or it's in fall in Cancer. So your reaction to confrontation would be almost backward. You'd almost want to be like nurturing. Um, and that's where it becomes very confusing, especially when the confrontation involves family members. You would almost want to be you'd want to kind of run away from confrontation. I really don't see you as being a confrontational person whatsoever with your sun in the 12th house and your Mars in Cancer. Um, I think you are very empathetic. You may fall into a lot of those empath traits, um, which is, of course, a good thing. It's good to be empathetic and to care for others. It can make you very nurturing, but at the same time, it can be very difficult because you may attract people who would want to take advantage of that nature. It can trigger like empath narcissist type relationships. Um, so I do see that as a potential. And again, going back to your Venus Mars, your relationship type placements, I do definitely see that potential for sure. Um, you would have good fortune or good luck though in relationships with Jupiter and Libra, and also Venus and Libra as well. I think something like you just naturally know how to carry yourself in relationships. You know what's expected, kind of intuitively. And again, I think I said this at the very beginning, but with Sun in Leo and Moon in Taurus, you're a very strong-willed individual. I think sometimes you can kind of feel lost with Sun in 12th house. You can lose that warm fire about you. But deep down, with your Moon in Taurus, you know your limits. You know what you want. You know what you don't want. You know yourself very well, and this has been there ever since you were very young. So yeah, I do think you have that kind of like almost like a common sense wisdom about you. You'd be very pragmatic, and it's difficult because I don't want to be too contradicting, but it's like part of you is very strong-willed and assertive and um, structured. But then at the same time, I think sometimes you can go through phases where you lose that and you um, become very secluded and there is no structure. I don't know, you get lost in these ideas and feelings, especially ideas. I think it's very mentally oriented. Like sometimes you integrate so much information or um, stress, maybe, that you kind of just detach from it all and you're not sure how to process it. Um, Especially at a young age, when we don't have our 12th house placements developed yet, um, we can just completely detach from those placements and go into denial to some extent. But this would, of course, improve as you become more self-aware and mature. With 12th house placements, they usually take a long time to develop. I think I've said that before, but um, so yeah, it would just be something that you would move into as you mature to be more assertive. I know I'm kind of rambling. Hopefully, this is making sense to you. Um, Oh, okay. It's interesting because so even though you have Jupiter in Libra, which would indicate good luck and good fortune in relationships, you also have Saturn there, so that would be initially more challenging, but it's also a placement that would indicate good fortune there later in life. It's just something you have to work for. So before, especially before the age of 30, I think relationships would be really difficult for you. I think you could have some like magical moments and some really special times, but at the same time they'd be very challenging. And I know that I could see someone saying, "Well, isn't that true for everyone?" But this is especially true for you. Relationships would be especially magical, but also especially challenging for you compared to other people before the age of 30. After 30, though, and especially just as you get older, you would have a really, really solid energy or theme with your relationships. Um, definitely romantic, but also just in general. I think you would learn to have, better boundaries and structure, I guess, with people. I want to just leave it open here so we can continue having a dialogue and you can ask me for anything specific that you'd like more information about. And then also, please just tell me what did I get right or did I get anything wrong. I always like to get that confirmation just so I know that what I'm saying has been true for you. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to dive into anything specific you'd like to go over. But yeah, you have a very interesting chart. There's so much going on here. It's like I think you have a lot of like gifts or like it's like you inherit a lot of good traits or good themes of your life, but there's also definitely some challenges there as well. Um, anyway, let me know what you think, and I'll look forward to speaking with you again. But if anyone else would like a reading as well, feel free to email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. I am currently charging $5, which I accept usually through PayPal, or you can go through the Ko-fi coffee link that I leave on the in the video descriptions as well. But yep, this was a beautiful reading. It's very very interesting chart. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.